In this skills demonstration, I want to talk a little bit about data representation. We've talked about state and we've talked about literals. I want to go into a little bit more detail on those. And I want to introduce a new concept of variables. So let's take a look at App Inventor. We've already played a bit with state. I'm going to open up this arithmetic processing one we were working on a minute ago. State is defining some of the properties that we're working with. And we've been playing around a lot with the text property of, these components. Right? In our builder, we're able to access the state by using the getters, these light green boxes, and we're able to manipulate the state by using setters to change those properties. We've also been exposed to literal values embedded in our program. Right? There's one here. Can you see it? What's the literal value? Yeah, always I'm using the literal number 3 because I know that I've got 3 input boxes, and so to take the average, I always need to get those values out, and I need to divide by the number 3. This is a numeric literal, a number literal, right? And I get that in my math section here. I can get that from that first block. I've also worked with some text literals, right? In my text processing that we did a few minutes ago, well, I did it a few minutes ago, maybe you did it, took a little break, but I've got a literal value in here as well, right? Specifically, literally the value space. Or even in my first program we had a literal. I used the value hello app inventor. And text literals or string literals are included in quotes, right? And I can access them by looking in my text drawer here and seeing this first block here is text literals. Let me go back to my arithmetic project here a second. Okay, what we see going on in this program is I'm using my state values directly in my calculation. I'm using a literal value directly in my calculation, and I'm getting a result that I can put out as output on my to my app. Okay. Let's change this app ever so slightly. I'm going to add another output field. What I'd like my app to do now is to not only take the average, but also give me the total. So I'm going to add another label here. And let's see. You know, it's kind of confusing. I'm going to go ahead and name these guys. I'll name this one average label. And I'm going to name this one total label. There. And instead of result, I'm going to make the text here average and result. Oops. Result. There we go. And I'm going to change this to calculate. Okay. So now, let's look at how I'm going to write this program. So, let's see. Go to my box editor. My average is already done, right? And what I want to do now is I want to set total labels text property to be, oh, this thing again, right? I can just duplicate that. Right? There we go. So now if I look at this on my phone, oops, and I type in my values, 5, 7, 9, calculate, I get a total value and a result. Okay. One thing I'm a little concerned about though is do I really need to add these 3 numbers together twice? A way I can get around this is using a variable to store that value and then just use that variable to look up that value. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a variable. And a variable is just a name for a value. So I'm going to call this name, I'm going to call this variable total. And variables need to be initialized. So I'm going to set its value to 0. So when the program starts, total is going to be 0. But when my button is pushed, I'm going to take my variable, and here I've got two blocks that are kind of like my getters and setters. And I'm going to set total to be the result of adding these things together. And then my average label is, well, I need to get total. Get the total and divide by 3. And the total label is just getting my total label. And now let's see what this looks like on my device. 6, 8, and 4. Right? Still calculates my average. It does the same thing. I didn't change the functionality at all. But what I did was I made it a little bit more efficient to process this. Instead of copying and pasting that code, that block, all I've done is create a variable to hold that value temporarily. And that's what variables do. It's a way of providing a name for my data. And it can be useful in reducing the amount of calculations that have to occur in the program.